Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm very excited for today's video because my order for the new Natasha Denona Yucca palette came in yesterday. Really wanted to play with this yesterday and film, but I did not have time, so I am very excited to finally try this out. If you know me and have been around here before, this is very much a perfect Colin palette. It is olives, mostly olives, and earthy tones, and it is everything I love in eyeshadow. Also, if you've been around for a while, you know that I haven't bought Natasha Denona palettes or anything from the brand in a while because of the incident. I feel like that was at the end of last year where they were selling products, including eyeliners, and marking them as vegan when they had carmine in them, and they didn't put it on the ingredients list in some places, and my friend had an allergic reaction, and they responded really badly. And it's not the first time they've responded to issues badly in the past. So put them on hold, but I could not resist this one, and neither could Steven. So we both bought it. I think, should be here today, hopefully, but by the time I'm filming this, they have it. But I cannot wait to try this. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Colin. I'm a non-binary Latinx scientist and lover of makeup with a definite soft spot for indie makeup and high-end makeup, and I tend to take a pretty analytical approach to my makeup reviews and my collection as a whole. And I have new videos every week, so I'd love to have you subscribe. Okay, so this came last night and it is so pretty. It was really hard not to throw some of these on my face last night. This is probably gonna be a long video. This is a first impression. I always like to start off videos like this saying this is a first impression. I do own a lot of Natasha Denona eyeshadows. I have all but one of her midi palettes. I don't have Retro Glam because I swatched them and they felt ashy on me. And I don't have all of her big palettes. Like I don't have, what is it, Sunrise, is it Sunset is the big one and Sunrise is the small one? Whatever, I don't have the big one. And I don't have the giant 28 pans, even though I do want them. But I do have a lot of her eyeshadow and I've used it a lot. So I'm very familiar with her formulas, but this will be a first impression for this palette, these formulas, this color story, all of that. So take what I say with that grain of salt that this is my first time touching it. But like I said, this will be a long video. I'm gonna do some swatches of the palette, especially since I have an olive undertone and I haven't seen anybody else really post that. And I am gonna do probably 2 looks, 1 on each eye, so I can, and I also have some comparison things to go over. So, also I tend to be long-winded. I think that's just a habit of being an academic. I either say things very succinctly or long-winded, there's no in between. I also wore my plant shirt, it felt very fitting. It has some snake plants on them and stuff, which are in the same family. So felt like I had to wear this. So this is the outer carton for the, so for general palette info, this retails for $69. I do know Angelica Nyquist just got an affiliate code with Natasha Denona that saves you 15%, so you can save like 10 bucks. So if you haven't bought this yet and you were thinking about it, you could buy it directly through Natasha Denona's website and save some money with her code. I bought this from Sephora so I could get the points because I didn't pre-order it, so I figured at that point I'll just buy it from Sephora and get the points, and if I hate it, I can return it that way pretty easily. Palette is beautiful, like the box is pretty, and then on the back it just has all the ingredients and the shade names, and then each shade name has their little description with the number and the letters. So like CM for creamy matte, CP for cream to powder, and then we have the new SF shades, which are her sparkling foiled. So I'm very excited to try those. And then this is the palette itself. It is beautiful. She did up the prices from $65 to $69, which makeup is already expensive and it's just getting more and more expensive, which is disappointing, but like even drugstore is like getting up there now. But this is very me and like tone and everything. So, and then when you open it up, it's just so pretty. I'm sure you've all seen this many times now. There's lots of people who pre-ordered and got it like launch day and have videos up already, especially people who don't have as busy of a job as I do. But this is beautiful. So you've got the 4 sparkling foil shades, 1 metallic, I love that even the earthy tones like the browns have a bit of an a green olive undertone to them, and then there's some complementary shades like the teal and these two. So I'm really, really excited to use this and swatch it. Before I get into swatches, and I'll have timestamps for everything below like normal, I had to talk about this because it's been bugging me since this was announced. So every video I've seen on this so far there's been a big, is it pronounced Yucca? Is it pronounced Yucca? I don't know. Is it the same thing? What is the name? What is all of this? And then I see people spouting misinformation in the comments, and the autistic evolutionary biology trained in me, the autistic evolutionary biologist in me is like, no, that's the wrong taxonomy. You're using these words wrong. And so I figured I would talk about some of the shade names, the shade, and the palette theme, and like that kind of stuff. So for anybody new here, I am a biological anthropologist / evolutionary biologist. I study human evolution, so paleontology, but humans. But I spent a lot of time in general evolutionary biology stuff. I used to work in the paleontology department at the Natural History Museum in New York. I was an intern there for 2 years, I don't know. But that was all in the back, so like doing research. I am also Mexican American. I was born in New Mexico and grew up partly in Southern California, where my family's from, Southern California and Mexico. And the New Mexico state flower is the yucca flower. So like, this is something this is a plant that I also have a special bond and special interest with. So, Americans say yucca. There's like the Yucca Mountain. That's how Americans say it. The name comes from, I say yucca, but that is also because that is the Spanish way to say it. So the name comes from the Spanish interacting with the indigenous people in Puerto Rico and the Caribbean and seeing plants and hearing them say things, and they named it yucca. So they named, the other version of the plant, Y-U-C-A, just with one C, also known as cassava, which is the root that you eat, like yucca fries. And then they encountered other plants all over the Americas, California, Nevada, like all over the Americas, and Mexico down to Guatemala, like in Central America and South America as well. And that became the genus name for those plants. So that is yucca plants, like Joshua trees are a type of yucca. Snake plants are in the same family. Snake plants are a different genus, but the same family. So when you look at yucca, I pronounce both the same. And I think yucca sounds weird. It sounds very American. It sounds like when Americans butcher, like when they name a city, they name it after Versailles, the palace, but they say Versailles. It's that kind of vibe. So I knew a lot of the details, like looking at the names. A lot of these are things I know, like citrine is a color, willow is a plant, flax is a plant, camu. A lot of these I knew, and some of them Elysian I knew. Some of them I didn't know, and I've looked up, so I have some notes to go over as I swatch the shades. But they're all named after, most of them are named after plant things and a lot of Latin plant names. But she also, Natasha Denona, did say she was inspired while she was in the Maldives and by tropical plants. And it weirds me out that like she was in the Maldives, which are in the Indian Ocean, near India and Sri Lanka. They're islands, and one of the names means island in the native language there. But then she said tropical plants, but then she called it yucca and then went with very much like desert colors, and it gives me more like Southwest California desert vibes. So it's a little confusing, but I'm here for it either way. So I have the shade descriptions up here, and notes on what some of them mean. But I'm gonna do some swatches for anybody new here. I like to do live swatches. Swatches don't really tell you what it's gonna perform like. but show you kind of an idea what it'll look like on your skin. So I'm gonna go down my arm, no primer, nothing. So the first shade is one of the new sparkling foils, and it is described as a green. It's Plantasia, and it's described as a green and bronzy rosewood duochrome. Plantasia is actually the name of an album, electronic album from the 70s, that's actually meant for plants, like to play for plants. So I think that's a clever name and weird thing to include, and it is really pretty. I do see like a rosy base and then kind of a green flip, and it is very dimensional. So I definitely see a lot of sparkle, kind of like Nomad sparkles where they're smooth and they're not necessarily a flip, but there's lots of sparkles of other colors. I see a lot of that in here, but even more so because this also does have a bit of a flip. Very smooth and creamy, but I definitely see that rosewood base with like the greeny bronze when the light hits it. That's really pretty. And then the next shade is Calathea, which is a cream to powder dark olive. Really excited for that. I love her cream to powder formula. And Calathea is a genus of plants from the American tropics. And that is exactly what I hoped for. I'm not a fast watcher. If you want fast watches, go to someone else. I like to describe things. Very soft and creamy and very much just a nice medium olive. And the next shade is Komorebi, which is a Japanese word for the way light filters through tree leaves. One of those that's like in English you have to have like a whole descriptive, like a whole phrase to describe what it means, like Schadenfreude. And that is really beautiful. It is, again, really sparkly like the other one. Hopefully you can see that. Really dimensional, but still really smooth. Like it's not textured in like the thick textured like clumps way. It's textured in that there's a lot of sparkle and dimension to it. And that is described as a mustard gold. And I would say that's pretty accurate. Bit of a green to it, kind of like a mustardy antique gold. The next shade is Acacia, which is another type, a genus of trees, plants and trees. Like, well, most things are a shrub or a tree. And those are a very prominent tree. They're all over Africa and Australasia. There's like 1,000 species. That's really beautiful. That is described as a matte golden olive, and I would say that is very accurate. Really love that. That's gonna be a really good shade on my skin tone, or anybody similar. And then Camu Camu is the next one, and that is a name for, a common name for a seed and genus of plant from the Amazon rainforest. So Camu Camu. And that is supposed to be a, what does she describe that as? A matte, vibrant lime. And I would say that is very accurate. It's kind of neon. It's a little thinner than the others, but it should, yeah, it does build up nicely, and it is a really pretty neon. Neons tend to be kind of thin, kind of like pastels. The next shade is Tipu, which is described as a dusty mustard green. Tipu could be a couple things. There's a Mayan site in the Yucatan named Tipu, but it's also Tipu, what is it? Tipuana Tipu is a South American tree. So again, sticking with the plants. There's also a village in Estonia named that, so lots of meaning for that. So that is really pretty. You can see it's very similar to Acacia, and I saw people say that they're too similar, but Acacia is definitely more green, and this is more mustardy. So I appreciate having both. The next shade is Elysian, which is from Greek mythology, and this is described as a foiled medium taupe. I'm really excited. I think it's really interesting to have this in there. I think it'll work well with flax. and be a nice contrast. So there's like a little bit of texture with these, but then they smooth out really, really beautifully. And I love a taupe. I really fucking love a taupe. So I'm very excited for that. That is beautiful. So if you don't know, the Elysian fields were a part of the afterlife separate from Hades, where like originally it was for like heroes and the children of the gods, but then it became like anyone the gods desired could go there. So it's like the peaceful, beautiful afterlife. So it kind of fits with the theme of, you know, she was on vacation, peaceful, beautiful, tropical plants. The next shade is Valley. That doesn't need any info. And that is just a nice brown. I think she describes it, yeah, as a mustard brown. There's definitely a little bit of that yellow undertone in it. And then the next shade is Citrine, which she has a Citrine in another palette, but they're very different. That one's more true to the color. This one's just a mustard. She describes it as a, yeah, mustard Citrine. So you've got the mustard brown, mustard green, and then golden olive. This is like all of my favorite colors. The next shade is Ray. Again, she talked a lot about like seeing the light through the trees and morning dew on plants, so that makes sense. This is described as a medium golden, green gold, but with more green than gold, she said. It's a little on the thinner side for one of her metallics, but it's really beautiful. And it's definitely like a green gold. And then Flax is the dark shade. It's a dark brown. What does she do? Yeah, she just says dark brown. Flax could be two things. There's flax that like flax seeds you eat, which is kind of the color of this. Those are linseed. Linseed oil is made from them. Flax is also, could be aloe, which is, you know, a tropical plant, so. Really like that. That is a very smooth shade. The next one is Fushi. That is the word for island in the local language of the Maldives. And that is really beautiful, kind of orangey. She describes that as medium mustard yellow. So that's just mustard, and this is more like mustard orange. I wouldn't call it a mustard yellow, unless you're referring to the actual like condiment mustard. And then Macchia is another one that I'm very excited for. So you can see it picking up a little bit of texture in the pan because it's kind of soft, but then it's probably going to smooth out really well like the others. Yeah, smooths out really beautifully. I am most excited for that shade. That is a sparkling foiled medium olive, medium gold olive, golden olive, yeah. And then the last two are Ixia is how I would say it, but I'm sure because it's a Greek word is pronounced differently, or was originally Greek. And it is a genus of flowering plants from South Africa, also called corn lilies. And then the last shade is Willow, which everyone knows what a willow is. They're a much more cold to temperate tree, so a little bit odd, but really, really beautiful. So I am very excited, and I think you can see on my skin tone, yeah, some of these are different, or very similar, but there's nuance between them, but I think people who said they look identical, like I saw someone say that all three of these shades looked identical, and I was like, no, they're not going to be on me. So I am very excited for this. So I'm gonna go wash off my arm, and I'm gonna do 2 looks and see what we think. Okay, and I do have a bunch of palettes to do some comparisons to. I think I'll leave that for the end. I'm just putting my watch back on. Okay. So a lot of the things that I've seen compared this to are very much more green palettes. And I would say this isn't a green palette, this is an olive palette. And that's part of why I wanted it so much. Really excited to keep using, to use this. I'm gonna do like an olivey tone shade look, and then Yeah, I'm gonna do an olivey tone look and then maybe something more neutral with like Valley and this shade. Yeah, because then I can do, yeah, I think I know what I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna do olive mattes, but with Plantasia, and then I'm gonna do more neutral mattes with Macchia, because those are the two shimmers that I'm the most excited about. I already did my face. I'll have everything in the description box like normal. I used a little bit of my House Labs foundation around the center of my face because I had some redness. And then a little bit of the Givenchy concealer, Rare Beauty blush, House Labs bronzer, House Labs setting powder. That's it. So I have a bunch of other stuff that I want to film, and my Odin's Eye order finally came in yesterday as well. So I'm gonna film with those this week at some point, like after work in the evenings. But I'm going to be out of town this weekend, so I have the weekend off, which will be nice, but that means everything's gonna be a little wonky. I still need to also finish, I need to film my like May favorites and fails, especially since it's now June 5th. Okay, so I am gonna grab a Rephr brush. This is a little stained because I've used it with a brown matte a bunch, but I've wiped it off, and I just wiped it off again on a microfiber towel. And I am gonna go in with Acacia first. I really wanna see Acacia on my skin. So I'm gonna put that right here. Always tap off, and then I'm gonna run that through the crease. And you could easily do more monochromatic looks with this, obviously, but I like contrast. I think a really pretty look would just be Flax and Elysian on the lid. And I will, of course, wear this a bunch to work now that I have it. So that I can really, you know, form my opinions in relationship with it. This is just a Rephr one. I like it because it's fluffy, but also tapered. So I've got a little bit of a flat side to tap down, and then can go this way. And then if you flip it, you've got even more blending space. So that's really pretty, laying down really nicely. Olive tones like this are my favorite because they just work so well with my undertone. They're like my neutrals. You know, a lot of people consider neutrals, I mean, neutral browns are neutral for everybody, but a lot of people include like mauves and light pinks and peaches with neutrals and in neutral palettes, but those are not neutrals for me. Those like pop, those like stand out and look weird against my skin. That's very much a, you know, a light skin, pink undertoned person's neutral, not an everybody's neutral. And I think, especially in the United States and in the makeup community, we forget that light-skinned, pinky peach undertone people, that's a lot of the consumer base, but you're actually the global minority. Most people do not look like you. So it bothers me when like a pale pink palette is described as a neutral palette, because it's not. That was really pretty. This is the kind of shade I would just pack all over the lid, blend the edges, and probably just call that a day. I'm gonna put a little on my lid just to kind of see what that looks like. And you can see it builds up nicely. So one layer is right here, and then after a couple layers, it's much darker. So it really is building on itself. And then I'm gonna grab a smudgy brush and grab Tipu and put that underneath my eye, just so that I have both next to each other, kind of. I wanna see how they look. I mean, I'm putting this over a smaller surface area. But yeah, it's definitely less green. I definitely, especially as I build up Acacia, I'm getting a lot more green than I am with Tipu. And then I'm gonna grab I could have started with the darkest shade, which would be Calathea, but I'm gonna see how it layers. I love her cream to powders because they layer really well and they make a nice base, but I'm gonna see how it layers over Acacia. It's actually turning a little less olive by doing that. That's interesting. And I'm going in with Calathea, not Willow. Willow is gonna look just straight up blue on me. And then pick up a little bit more of Acacia. And that added depth and made it a little bit more actual olive again. Okay. And then I'm going to take where is it? I'm gonna take a Rephr 2, so like a flat shader brush. I'm gonna pick up a little bit of Camo. I wanna see how that works as an inner corner before I put any shimmer on. Oh, I really like that. I'm just gonna preemptively put that on the other side too. While it's on the brush, just go ahead and do it. I like a matte inner corner quite a bit. And this is a really interesting limey shade. And for being so bright and neon, it's working really beautifully. There is an eyeliner in this collection that is the same color as this. I feel like I might have one that's basically that color, but if I don't, I'm buying it. Okay, this is a really nice all matte look you could do. You could even just have skipped the, you know, Calathea, there we go, shade, and just left it kind of Acacia all over, and then put Camo as that pop, and you could leave it like that if you were so inclined. But I need to keep adding stuff. So I'm gonna grab Plantasia on a Rephr 21. If you're new here, this is my favorite shimmer brush. I have like 4, and it's because it's really dense and flat, and it just picks up things really well, and I never get fallout with this. And I'm just gonna put that all over. I might try my finger as well. Really trying to test as much as I can. I might try to film my May favorites after this. I also need to cook dinner and stuff, so we'll see. And it is 6 o'clock. But if I do, I'll just have 2 different eye looks. That's fine. I don't think anybody's gonna care. So putting this down with the brush, I'm mostly just getting the green gold sparkle. I'm not getting a lot of the base, that like rosewood that you do see. But let's see if I put it on my finger. Okay, then it's more metallic and you do see the base more. I do also like Natasha Denona shimmers are often ones that you can put down the shimmer and then blend the edges, which I really do like on a day-to-day. So Ray would be a good one for that. This one might be. We'll see how well the edges blend, but it's really sparkly, so that might not be one that people want to do that with. I'm just picking up the first brush I used and just kind of going over the edge right here in my crease. And I do have some sparkle going up, so if you don't want sparkle in your crease, don't do that. You know, just lay it down or use a clear glue. I don't mind a little sparkle travel up most of the time. Okay, I really love that. I hope it's coming across in camera. It is smooth, like it's just as smooth as her normal metallics, but there's all that sparkle. And some of that sparkle did travel up, but it's not like textured sparkle where you like see clumps of glitter or there's anything like that. It's just really beautifully refined. That is so pretty. I am so excited for this. I think this might become my new favorite Natasha Denona palette. But I already thought it probably would be. Yeah, and there's definitely a little bit of sparkle in my brush from doing that, but that is fine. Okay, I'm gonna go onto the other side and do that one before I do my mascara and stuff. So I'm grabbing another rougher number 1. I have like 4 of these as well. And I'm gonna grab Valley and just see what that one's like as a mid-tone brown. And there's definitely not an inner corner shimmer shade or a brow bone highlight, but I often don't need that, especially if you're using a face highlighter, just use that. Like, you don't need to pull out another palette. You could just use your face highlighter. That's a really beautiful shade. It's just a nice warm brown, but there is a little bit of that mustard to it. And you can see if I put a light layer here, it's less dark than where I have 2 layers. So that is one thing I like about Pat and Natasha both, is that their shadows really layer well. I would say Natasha's more about layering, kind of like Viseart. You put a layer down, put a second layer and it's darker. Pat's are more like dark then sheer out, but you know, can also layer. So this would be a good everyday brown, kind of the same vibes as putting my bronzer on my lid, but my bronzer also has a bit of a golden undertone, so that makes sense. And I'm just flipping the brush sideways so I have more surface area to diffuse. That's like the perfect transition shade for me. Up here it's just blending right in. At least in person. I don't know what it's gonna look like on camera. And then let's grab another rougher 26, which is the big pencil brush. I'm gonna pick up Flax. And I'll put that right along the lash line and outer V. Just add that little bit of depth. Not going too dramatic. You could. I'm trying to go from wearable to more fun, so you can kind of see multiple stages in case you're someone that will only do the brown most days or only do the green most days. And I've definitely, now that I work in the office, I still wear fun makeup if I wake up in time, but there's definitely days where all I have time for is bronzer on my lid, and then I come home and I want to go out and I add something sparkly, so I get it. Mine's more about time than not being allowed to use something though. That is just a perfect 2-shade neutral. Really like that. I'm just gonna run a little bit of Valley underneath as well. And then a little bit more of Flax. I like to connect the inner corner around and the outer corner around. I feel like it connects the eye. If I'm putting something down there, I want it to wrap down a little bit. Okay. Might need to fix that shape with concealer, but that is fine. Okay. Now let me try Macchia. I just need to. So once again, I'm trying a rougher 21. Picks up really nicely. And that is so pretty. Oh, it's so pretty. Definitely getting more diffuse sparkle with the brush, which is nice to know that these do that. Because if you want a less metallic look, if you want just a diffuse sparkle, which I often do when it's summer and hot out, that is a good way to do it. And then let's amp it up with a little bit of my finger. If you use glitter glue underneath or something, it would start stronger, I'm sure, or wet your brush. I just don't like doing that. That is so pretty. If you're someone that's really interested in this, but you're scared of greens, you do have some nice neutrals to ground things and stuff, but this is very much an olive palette. So if you don't like olive tones, you're not gonna like this. Okay. I really like both of these so far. I'm gonna go throw some mascara on and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back and this is the finished 2 looks. They are different looks, but because I used a greenish shimmer for both, they're not that different. I could go to the store like this and I don't think most people would notice. This shimmer, Plantasia, is definitely pulling really green on me. I think in the right light you see more of that rose undertone and it's not as intensely metallic. It's a little smoother and softer. And then Macchia is definitely more green. I see a lot more green and it's like a nice dark, it's basically like Calathea, like a darker olive with a really bright gold sparkle versus that like rosy tone with the green and gold sparkle. So I am very happy with both of these looks. Really happy that I bought this palette. Can't wait to keep playing with this. So I'm gonna do some comparisons and then we'll wrap things up. So comparison time. The 2 Natasha Denona palettes that I kept seeing this compared to were Gold and Metropolis, and a lot of people saying this is basically the new Gold. And I do kind of see that. I think people think Gold is more green than it actually is. Gold is one of my favorites, but it is not very green and it is not olive at all. So you do have a mustard. I think what's got people is you have this mustard here and then you have these teals, but these are very much blue-green teals, even more so than Willow. So I'm gonna swatch. So when you hold them side by side, you can see they're quite different. Trying to make sure I'm in frame. So you can see they're both quite different. This is much more neutral. And then let's see, I'll do, I think this is Python is the name, versus Willow. And you can see, and versus Calathea. And you can see Python is very much blue compared to Willow is a little more blue, like a little more teal blue, but it's even more different than Python. So there's Python, there's Willow, and there's Calathea. So you can see they're very different. And then if we do the mustard shade, what is that one called? Dijon. I should have known that. Versus like Tipu and Citrine. You can see it's much more mustard. It's much more yellow brown. So there is Dijon. There's Tipu, really badly swatched. And you can see that green, that olive in there. And then there is Citrine, which is again, way more olive. I would say this is a true yellow brown and those are more olive. And then when we look at Metropolis, there are some olives in here, but they're also very different. So let me grab this shade, this shade, and this shade. I don't think, oh, and then here's this one. So this is very much like avocado green, like brown with a hint of olive, very much green, and then very much more yellow. So I'll put that one here, more orangey. And then I'll put these 3, I don't know, right above those. Yeah, those are all very distinct. So she's definitely not duping herself, which is what people were saying. At least some people. And then the other ones that immediately came to mind for new palettes are the new Nomad, which I did get in PR. I immediately saw the comparisons for this, and the new Odin's Eye Stone and Rock palette, which came yesterday as well. And let's look at the Odin's Eye, or let's look at the Nomad versus this. So Natasha's is definitely more expensive. It's $69 and you get less product. But I would say after using this a lot, this is a lime, very different from any of the limes here. This is a true green. And this one is a little olivey. This one's a little similar to Tipu, but not exactly. It's a little more brown, less olive, more brown. And then you've got cool neutrals and warm neutrals, which this doesn't really have. Like, it does have this kind of orangey tones and this brown, but even that is a little different than these. So like, they're not the same. And then here you also have these two like rose gold and bronze shades. You've got the dark brown matte. I would say Natasha Denona, I would say Yucca is an olive palette with some neutrals, and this is a neutral palette with some greens. And I'll swatch that Game Reserve shade from Nomad over here. So you can see it is pretty similar to Acacia actually, but that's really the closest one. So here is the Game Reserve from Nomad, and here is Acacia from Natasha. Very different formulas though. And then the new Odin's Eye has a little bit more, it has more blue greens in it. So when we pull those up, you can see the only more blue shade is Willow, but you've got a blue green here. This is more blue green. This is like a cool tone, like a dark black. You've got a cool tone shade here. This doesn't have any cool tones. This is also like a little bit, I haven't touched these yet, more minty, which does not exist here. So that is Cheerfulness. That's very much like a sagey color, which we don't have. So the Odin's Eye feels more like a green palette versus an olive palette, if that makes sense. Because olives are yellowy, green, brown, which is what you have here. This is more green, and I will be doing a video on this. So I'll have some ideas about how to compare them once I've used it, but I don't think identical. And then the other ones I thought of, Melt 420 do not have, although they did put it on sale when this came out for 30% off, and it's tempting. Ace Beauté Tropical Vibes, very similar color story. This is a more earthy, toned down version. That one's more punchy. So if you really want, if you like this, but you want punchy, go with the Ace Beauté. If you want the more grounded, earthy version, which is what I want, the Natasha Denona. The Ace Beauté is definitely cheaper, I believe. And then I've got Melt Gemini, my other olive palette, but Gemini is half neutrals. So Lorelei is maybe kind of similar to Fushi, but not really. These are a lot more vibrant. Polka Dot's kind of similar to Valley. Cupcake is a little lighter than Flax, but then you've got Bonnie, which is a great black. And then these are like really green olives here, and then Mochi. Mochi is probably the closest to Acacia or something, but it's unique. Like you can see it's got more yellow, and it's not exact. So I'm really glad, even though I love olive tones, that I did not dupe myself. And then the last one I thought of was the Hella palette from Odin's Eye, which has been discontinued, but does have some similar shades. So when we hold those up against each other, you can see you've got kind of an mossy, olivey shade there. Still more green than any of these. That's more like yellow. That's a pale yellow versus a pale lime. And then you've got the blue greens here, and then you've got the pinks. So I think still very different. So I am very happy with my purchase so far. I'm excited to keep playing with this. Let me know in the comments below what you think. I've been filming for almost an hour. Let me know what you think of the palette, what you think of the looks. You know I love your thoughts, and I like to talk in the comments, so let me know if you're thinking of getting this. It's a permanent palette, so it'll be around, so you can buy it during like her Black Friday sale or the Sephora sale or something like that, especially if these don't say like warm summer vibes. If this is giving you fall vibes, then I would wait to fall. But I'm very happy I got this, and I think it's gonna be my go-to daily with the Odin's Eye, or not the Odin's Eye, the Nomad, because the Nomad's a little more neutral, but I think these are gonna be my two favorite summer palettes. I'm happy that it's the summer of olive tones, it seems, and the summer of greens, because it's just like my perfect summer tones. Really intrigued to see what other brands come out with. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.